So I'm actually not prepared to introduce Carl Williamson, but I'm going to do it.
Okay.
I'm not prepared to introduce him.
我之前没有准备说介绍一下 Carol， 但是我准备介绍一下。
So, but what I know of Carl is quite impressive.
但是我对这个人了解，我觉得他是一个很奇妙、非常不一样的一个人。
So, as many of you may know, there are places in America where Christianity is quite strong and seemingly lots of churches.
就是很多人知道，在美国很多地方教会很兴旺，很多基督徒。
We call that Bible Belt.
我们叫它圣经地带。
And, you know, that's where like Arkansas, Texas, the Deep South, lots of churches.
一直从阿肯色到下面的就是很多州，很多教会。
Yeah. But there are places in the Northeast, especially, and other places in America where there are not so many churches.
但是你在美国的话，发现东北区还有其他一些地方其实是很少教会的。
And so, for that reason, a lot of times we don't have people that come to a place like Harding and want to go someplace like that because there's not too many Christians.
所以很多原因，很多人不愿意不去别的地方来哈尔滨，因为在其他地方没有太多基督徒。
Sometimes, even if they came from the Northeast, they want to stay here because there's a lot of Christians.
有些人呢，是因为哪怕他们来自那些东北的一些地方，但是他们想留在阿肯色，因为阿肯色是一个基督徒很多的地方。
And so, but Carl and his wife felt like God was calling them to the Northeast, and so they went up there and were up there how many years? 14 years.
所以Carol 和他的妻子受到了上帝的呼召呢，就去了东北区，大概待了14年。
Now, of course, he was working with some churches there, planting churches and helping Christians to grow there.
当然，他在那里拓展了很多教会。
But then also, how many years was it ago when you had the hurricane?
About 7.
7 years ago, they had a big hurricane up in that area, New Jersey, that area, and he was one of the ones who was able to help with all the relief and the help for people who had suffered under that.
大概7年前，在东北区那个新泽西州发生了很巨大的一个飓风，很大的灾难，所以他们在那里就申请去做了一些义工，就是救援他们。
And this year he's a visiting professor for us.
他这一次他在哈尔滨是一个拜访型教授。
Yeah, and so he's praying now what's going to be his next step. We, of course, would love for him to stay here, but we'll see, how that all works out. But we're going to, I think you'll be blessed from the things that he has to say tonight.
他现在呢正在寻求上帝的带领，他以后将去哪里？但是他在这里是我们每个人的祝福。
Okay.
New Jersey is 18 hours from this place.
新泽西大概离这儿大概有18个小时开车。
Most people in New Jersey do not believe in Jesus.
大部分人在新泽西他们是不相信耶稣基督的。
They have an understanding of Jesus, but they do not have a belief that brings them to live out that belief.
他们明白信仰耶稣是一个怎样的情况，但是他们自己没有把生命活出来。
New Jersey is full of people from all over the world, having come in through New York City and now into New Jersey.
纽约的很多人是从纽约过来的。
They're speaking every language in the world in New Jersey, and you have people of every religious belief in New Jersey, including Christians and Catholics and Jews, and Buddhists and Hindus, and Alibaba and many other religions that are in New Jersey.
新泽西州呢，就是一个文化多元化，也是一个宗教多元化的一个州，里面有很多来自不同地方、不同背景的人，他们也信奉不同的信仰，包括基督教、伊斯兰教、天主教、印度教和佛教，还有包括阿里巴巴教，不知道什么是阿里巴巴。
I've had many opportunities to speak at religious events that were not specifically Christian with individuals in New Jersey who were curious about Jesus but yet did not have a belief in him.
我在很多宗教会议上去做了一些演讲，这些宗教会议并非只是针对基督徒，而是各种信仰的。然后我去跟他们讲信仰耶稣是怎样的。
My first language is Swedish, and my second language is English.
其实我的第一语言是瑞典语，我的第二语言才是英语。
I grew up in Sweden as a child. My parents were missionaries there, and we only spoke Swedish in the home until we moved to Memphis when I was in 4th grade and I learned English.
我在瑞典出生长大的，那个时候我的父母都是在那里的宣教士，然后我在那里学习瑞典语，但是我们在家里学习英语。但我这时开始学英语的时候，是我从瑞典回到孟菲斯，大概是我小学4年级的时候。
The way I would say that is jag pratar svenska.
What's that?
That's Swedish for I speak Swedish.
Okay. 他说了一些瑞典语。
Tonight I'm supposed to speak to you about Jesus and who Jesus is.
今天我讲的一个课主题就是关于耶稣，耶稣到底是谁？
It's a lesson I've done many times with people who have no understanding of who Jesus is.
这个话题是我讲过很多次，是对于那一些从来没了解过耶稣的人。
We'll be looking mostly in the Gospel of John. That's one of the Gospels that tell about Jesus.
我们主要今天看一下约翰福音。约翰福音是介绍耶稣生平的一个很重要的福音书。
So we begin in John 1
约翰福音第1章。
in verse 1.
It's not everybody, of course, has fun.
That's okay. It starts with these words, "In the beginning was the Word."
他是这么开始的：太初有道。
They're the same words that start the very first book of the Bible called Genesis, which means beginnings.
圣经的第一卷书叫《创世纪》，创世纪的意思是表示开始的意思。
The writer of the Gospel of John specifically wants to remind us of how the beginning of creation began.
所以这里的作者就是使徒约翰，他在这里特别的想去提醒我们，这个宇宙是怎么开始的。
You may have learned in classes about the beginning of creation and how it came to be in 7 days in the book of Genesis, chapter 1.
你们或许学习到关于圣经创世纪第1章讲的，世界的形成是在上帝7天的创造之中所产生的。
That chapter is full of a lot of poetry about how creation came to be.
那些经文是很多是关于一些诗意性的一些经文来表达世界是怎么产生的。
When studying with people in New Jersey about Jesus, one of their biggest struggles is whether or not God created the world.
当我去跟那些新泽西的那些人去介绍福音的时候，第一个很重要的问题就是上帝到底是怎么创造这个世界的？
Was it through evolution or the Big Bang Theory, or was it 7 literal days in which God spoke it into being?
到底是7天内创造形成的，还是通过进化论，还是那个宇宙大爆炸理论呢？
Many times that is where people wanted to argue about there not being a God at all.
他们很多时候，他们其实不觉得这是上帝所创造的。
The Gospel of John starts with the words "in the beginning" because the writer wants to remind us that the topic he's talking about has been before the very beginning of creation.
约翰这位作者写约翰福音，他以太初有道作为开始，其实就是对我们提醒，在世界万有形成的开始的时候，在之前就已经有一个东西在那里。
The one that the gospel writer is going to talk about, Jesus, was before the creation of the world. Whether you believe in a creation that started with a big bang or evolution, or whether it was spoken into being by a creator itself.
约翰在这里强调的一个目的，就是在这个存在是在我们所说的，包括我们所说的这个宇宙被创造、被7天创造、宇宙大爆炸理论，这个之前都已经存在那里。
So that's why the writer says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God."
所以这就是为什么使徒约翰说，他说太初有道，道就是神，道与神同在。
The gospel writer doesn't use the name Jesus; he uses the name the Word.
这是那个作者他没有用耶稣这个名字去代替这个存在，而是用了 word 这个词，道这个词。
Sorry, hard to translate the word.
It's okay.
Yeah. It's the same thing that God does in creation. He speaks into existence the world.
其实也是和 创世纪里面上帝怎么创造万物是殊途同归的，因为上帝是说有就有，命令则灵。
So regardless of which way you believe the world came to be, we all struggle, even in science or in religion, to wonder about what came before that very beginning of creation itself. And the gospel writer is trying to get us to say there was something in the beginning before creation, and that was the Word.
所以当我们去挣扎去理解世界怎么形成的，到底是通过科学进化呢，还是宗教什么的？使徒约翰在这里就强调了，就是在一切万有形成之前，都已经有一个存在在那里，就是这位道。
So again, he says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning."
所以经文这么说，第一节，太初有道，道与神同在，道就是神。
And then the gospel writer reminds us that the Word is not just something that is spoken. It's not just the speech or the spoken word. It is something different altogether.
然后这个作者呢，马上就提醒我们，他说这里所说的道，并不是意味着我们所说出的话语，而是比这个说出的话语要意义更深远和广大。
It says, "The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only who came from the Father, full of grace and truth." Verse 14.
而这个作者呢，他在14节是这么说的：这个道成了肉身，住在我们中间，满有恩典和真理。
So what the gospel writer is saying is the thing that was before creation is this word of God, or the spoken word. It was something before creation. And that thing that was before creation became flesh. It became human like us.
所以作者在这里就告诉我们，他说，在这个万有存在以前，就已经有这样一位道，这个道呢，就成为了一个肉身，住在了我们中间。
So if we're to try to understand who is Jesus, we have to understand that he was before the very beginning of whatever creation came to be.
所以当我们要去明白，我们问耶稣是谁的时候，首先我们要明白，在这个世界万有形成之前，那个存在是什么。
But then he also came at a particular point in time. God chose to become like us. This God became flesh and blood, just like you and I.
但是在历史的一个特定的一个时间里呢，这位神他就选择了成为一个肉身的样子，像我们这样的人的样式，来到了这个世界当中。
So the question is, why would a God who is much bigger than us, that does not need us, why would he choose to become like us?
所以问题就来了，就是如果有一位神，他是远远的高于我们，在我们之上，他为什么想成为一个人的样式来到我们中间呢？
That's the question we're asking when we talk about who is Jesus.
所以这个就是当我们去谈论耶稣是谁这个要问的问题。
Also, in order to understand who Jesus is, we are able to see the gospel writer shares several metaphors or pictures to help us understand what his character is like.
所以当我们要去问耶稣到底是谁的时候，我们去看这些福音的作者们去描述耶稣，他用了他不同的比喻，用了不同的图片语言去描述耶稣的生平。
So one of those pictures is in John chapter 6.
这样的有一个图片语言是在约翰福音的第6章。
So John 6, it says in verse 33 through 36. I'm going to read those. Okay?
6章33节到36节。
For the bread of God is he who comes down from heaven and gives life to the world. Sir, they said, from now on give us this bread. Then Jesus declared, I am the bread of life. He who comes to me will never go hungry, and he who believes in me will never be thirsty. But as I told you, you have seen me, and still you do not believe.
约翰福音6章33到36节，因为神的食物就是从天上降下来，把生命赐给世人的那一位。他们对耶稣说：“主啊，求你把这食物赐给我们。”耶稣说：“我就是那生命的食物，到我这里来，必定不饿，信我的永远不渴。但我告诉你们，你们虽然见了我，还是不信。”
Jesus speaks about himself, and he says that he is bread. He is the bread of life.
所以耶稣在这里，他用了这样的语言去描述他自己。他说：“我是生命的粮。”
And he comes down from heaven to give life to the world. In other words, he is the one that feeds the world. He's the one that continues to allow the world to sustain itself.
换句话说，这位从天上来的这位耶稣，他来到世间，降到世间，他是为了喂养这个世界，因为这个世界需要通过他来维持和生存。
He's able to say that because he created the world, or was there before the creation of the world
他
itself.
这么说的原因，就是因为他在创世之初他就已经存在了。
So he just uses this metaphor or this picture of himself being bread, and his message is, I am bread, which sustains the entire world.
所以耶稣就这里用了一个比喻，或者是叫图片语言去描述他的身份。他是世界的粮，生命的粮，因为这个世界通过他才能维持生命。
And the message that Christians believe about Jesus is that if we follow Jesus, we can have life forever, even without any physical bread.
所以，对于基督徒所信靠的这位耶稣，就是当我们去信靠他的时候，我们就有一个永远的生命。哪怕是我们没有这样，现在我们没有这样呼吸的时候，我们还是有这样的生命。
So you might ask me, does that mean I could never eat again here on earth?
所以你可能会问我，那我们以后是不是再也不能吃东西了？以后？
Of course not.
当然不是。
But what Christians believe, those who believe in Jesus believe that we have eternal life, life forevermore with God, and it's only through this man, Jesus.
基督徒真正所相信的乃是通过耶稣基督，他一个人可以得到永远的生命，这个生命是通过耶稣来得到的。
There's another picture that Jesus gives about himself, and it's in John chapter 8 and verse 12.
第二个关于讲耶稣的一个图片语言是在第8章，约翰第8章。
It says, when Jesus spoke again to the people, he said, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life.
他在第8章12节这么说，他说：“我是世界的光，跟从我的必定不在黑暗里走。”
He uses this picture of himself as the light of the world.
他在这里用了一个比喻，图片语言的话语来表示他是世界上的光。
It's describing creation before creation ever came to be, that it is in utter darkness, that there is nothing before creation. And yet when he comes and speaks, creation has light.
他这里讲的意思就是在创世之初，在创世之前，一切都是混沌虚无的，但是他创造之后呢，就有了光，就是耶稣就成为了这样的光。
So Christians believe that Jesus is the light because he is the one who gives light to the world, but also because Jesus is able to light up all of the hurts and sorrows that are in our heart and soul.
耶稣他在这里说他是世界的光，还有一层意思就是他不仅说是照亮这个世界，而是可以把这个光进到我们心里去，医治我们的内心伤痛。
Jesus is not simply a God that provides light for the earth. Jesus is God who provides light for the earth, but also provides life to all of our life.
所以耶稣所提供的并不是所以我们所想象的这种实际上的光，而是一种真正可以给我们提供生命源泉的一种东西。
Remember, he is the bread of life because he provides all of our nourishment, and he is the light of our life.
当然，我们之前也提过，它是生命的粮，它提供了我们身体维持的必须所需。当然，它在这里，它就是耶稣，就是我们的光。
That's why you'll find at Harding, a lot of people see Jesus as the light because Jesus connects us in relationships with each other. He even lights up our ability to have healthy relationships, friendships, marriages, healthy relationships with other people.
为什么我们会常常在哈尔滨会看到耶稣说，在哈尔滨会看到有人说，耶稣其实就是我们的光，因为这种光点燃了人与人之间的关系，去让人与人之间去建立那种正常健康的关系。
This place is nothing like the rest of America.
其实Cersei 这个地方和美国的大部分地方是不一样的。
Where I came from in New Jersey, my friends who were in New Jersey, if they visited Cersei, they would think it was a very strange place.
我之前在新泽西住嘛，然后我的家庭从新泽西过来拜访的时候，发现其实Cersei是一个比较怪异的城市。
But one of the reasons it's a strange place is because Harding is a place where you have many people that believe in Jesus and that He is the light of the world.
这个城市怪异的原因来在于这个地方有太多的人去信仰耶稣了，因为耶稣成了这个是这里这一片的一个光。
There's another verse in John chapter 11 that talks about who Jesus is. This one is a little bit more serious.
在另外一幅经文，在约翰福音11章呢，就谈到了耶稣到底是一个怎样的人。那这个经文就有点稍微正式一点。
John 11:25 and 26.
25节到26节。
Jesus says to her, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me will live even though he dies. And whoever lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this?
约翰福音11章25到26节，耶稣说：“我就是复活和生命，信我的人虽然死了，也要活着。所有活着又信我的人，必定永远不死。你信这话吗？”
One of the problems that you and I both share is that we are going to die.
我们每个人的问题就是，我们有一天会死亡。
The reality is that all of us are going to have to face that death in some way in our life.
所以现实要面对的是，我们每个人都要面对这样的死亡。
How are we to explain our life in light of the fact that we are going to die?
所以我们怎么去解释我们即将去死亡这个事实呢？
Can I come up with the answers myself for how to have a good life?
我可以自己去想出一些答案，去解答我到底怎样可以活出一个好的人生吗？
Are the answers found in Buddhism or Hinduism or Judaism?
在其他宗教，包括犹大教、印度教、伊斯兰教，你都可以找到这样的答案。
These are the kinds of questions that in college we should be asking ourselves.
其实，在大学里面，我们作为大学生应该去问这样的问题。
Harding is a place that advocates the answer to that question is Christianity.
哈尔丁所倡导的，我们只有从基督教可以找到这样的答案。
However, it is a place where you are allowed to ask difficult questions.
幸运的是，我们在哈尔丁这个地方，我们是可以被允许去问一些比较难懂、比较困难的问题的。
My friend became a Christian about 13 years ago.
我一个朋友在13年前信了主。
About 7 years ago, he was watching YouTube videos online about God.
7年之前，他在 YouTube 上看了一些关于上帝的一些视频。
He stopped believing in Jesus and who he is.
那个时候，他就开始不再相信耶稣是神了。
He believed instead the YouTube videos about God that he found.
反而他去相信了那个 YouTube 视频里面所讲的那个上帝。
The truth is that we will all come up with the answers that we want to find.
但是现实就是我们总是想去找到我们自己想要找到的答案。
But I continue to remind my friend that Jesus is the only answer that truly makes a difference.
但是我持续的去提醒我这个朋友说，耶稣才是回答能够解决这个问题的一个答案。
I tell him that he makes a difference because he is resurrection and the life.
因为他有所不同，是因为他是生命，他是复活。
Which means that this life is not the end for us who follow Jesus.
那也同样意味着，就是对我们去跟随耶稣的人，这个生命的终结不是生命的结束。
This life continues through Jesus in heaven forever.
我们这个生命是通过耶稣去继续的生存下去，而是在天上，在天堂。
Now imagine for a moment that you believe in Jesus.
想象一下，如果你相信耶稣的话，
Imagine that he created all the good things in the world that are around you right now.
你也想象一下，这位耶稣所创造的这些所有的美好的东西，在我们这个地球上可以看到的。
Imagine a place where everybody was following the ways of Jesus, and it just made life much happier and better.
所以你再想象，生活在这个地方的人，所有的人都在跟随耶稣，在那个环境里面生活，难道不会更快乐、更容易吗？
And imagine that he loves you more than anyone who has ever loved you before, more than your parents, more than somebody who you love. It's more than anyone he loves you.
也想象一下，这位耶稣他爱你比任何人爱你都要更多，甚至超过你的父母，甚至超过你的爱人。
In Christianity, what we believe is that we get to be with him who loves us and really does make life better forevermore.
所以基督教的给我们的意义就是，我们和这位能够这么如此爱我的这位耶稣、这位神，能够永远的同在，永远的住在一起。
So when we ask the question, who is Jesus?
所以当我们去问谁是耶稣的时候，
We're reminded in just this gospel, the Gospel of John,
所以我们在这里就被再次提醒，在约翰福音里面提醒到，
that he is the Word that was from the very beginning,
他就是起初那位存在的道，
that he is the bread of life that sustains us,
他是生命的粮来维持我们的生命，
that he is the light of the world,
他是生命的光，世界的光，sorry，
and that he is the resurrection and life.
他也是复活，他也是生命。
So that gives you a little bit of an understanding of who Jesus is from the Gospel of John.
所以这个所讲的就可以帮助我们大概明白约翰福音里面所讲的耶稣他到底是怎样的人。
So I want to go ahead and ask you, do you have any questions about who Jesus is from what we talked about
所
today?
以我现在就把话语权交给你们，你们有什么问题关于耶稣是什么？
Go ahead, Leo. We know you.
Okay, so currently at the